honesty. Can you say honesty? Honesty. Can you say honesty? Honesty. Can you say honesty?
Afternoon, and welcome to Reason with Rattigan with your host, Will, the Rebel Rattigan on Reggae Global Radio. Let me start by saying thanks to the thousands of you watching and or listening to the program. And I urge you to encourage or remind your friends and family members who cannot watch the program today to watch it on my YouTube channel and also to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Today, I have two guests, and as usual, you, family, you're invited to join in the discussion via phone, and that number is 667-369-8569. Again, the number is 667-369-8569, or you can hit us up in the chat room, and that's always a viable option. As a reminder, we have two periods to call in to the program. One will be at 4:30, which is 3:30 Jamaican time and 9:30 UK time. And the other is at 5:30 our time. When I say our time, meaning people on the eastern coast of the US, 4:30 Jamaica time, 10:30 UK time. Another reminder, don't forget to tune in to Reggae Global Radio, this station, tonight at midnight until 2 a.m. and relax with the Rebel. Tonight's theme is 70s, 80s slow jams. And as usual, the selection is absolutely fantastic. So make it a date and don't be late. Well, this afternoon, my friend and colleague Herb Nelson Jr. will join me along with my two guests. My first guest is Dr. Nadeen Spence. Some of you may know her from CVM. She's a broadcaster over there. She chairs the subcommittee of the Constitutional Reform Committee that is responsible for public engagement and communication, because you know there's a lot of talk about this constitution, the Jamaican constitution, and what we're going to do about it in terms of getting rid of the monarchy and so on and so forth. She'll talk about the work that's been done to examine previous proposals, and they're also considering new proposals with a view to making Jamaica a republic. My second guest is the well-known and beloved Pastor Robert McIntosh, or Pastor Bobby as he's popularly known. He leads I can't pronounce this, Maranatha Church in Waterhouse, my neck of the woods. And his wife heads the Maranatha Basic School, one of the best basic schools in Jamaica. He, and I think she will join him, will discuss the work being done to educate the young minds and also the role of the church in providing an alternative to at-risk individuals in his community. Shout out time. Continued prayers and blessings from Mama Eileen, Papa Trevor, Ma P and family, Bonnie, Sassy D, and Mrs. Nelson. Big shout out to the Reggae Global family, the Meadowbrook crew, the Firehouse crew, the Rollington crew, Donovan and the Admirals, TSL, and the crew of hardworking, dedicated, honest members of the JCF and JDF who are trying desperately to keep Jamaica safe and secure. Can't forget those people. Update. Last week I provided an update regarding my attempts to obtain information about the fertilizer that came to Jamaica from Morocco as a gift, and also information about the administrative filings relative to Minister Kamina Johnson-Smith's failed bid to become the Secretary General of the Commonwealth. And I know some of you probably say, we're tired to hear about it, but you know, the truth must not only be the truth, but it must be told. And we can't tell it one time, because we know about the 7-day or the 9-day wonder in Jamaica where a story has legs for a limited period of time and then it dies. it's almost as if it never happened. Well, not around here. We're not going to let that happen, especially when it comes to holding government ministers accountable. Well, I have collected significant information that shows a violation of law in Minister Kamina Johnson-Smith's matter. I have completed my part of the necessary paperwork, and my Jamaican attorney will complete the process, and hopefully we'll file the matter in the Jamaican Supreme Court next week. Now, before the broadcast, just before I had a talk with her, and there is one slight delay, and it's that they don't have electronic filing in the Jamaican court system, or at least it's not the way they have it in the U.S., where you can do e-filing anytime. So as a result, my affidavit will have to be signed, and they want the original with the wet signature. Can't send a copy, so I have to do that and send it off to Jamaica, and that may take some time. Hopefully not too much time, but it's coming, and we're serious because we're holding people accountable around here. I mean, I've collected the documents, and I think it's a good case, and it's going to spell some challenges for the minister and those involved. The fertilizer matters next, and in that case, some people may be facing fines and/or jail time for violating the law. So, stay tuned. Now we have a category called New News, and let me start by saying that, as far as new news is concerned, that the diaspora has been known over the years for making a little noise, but not biting those who deserve to be bitten, particularly the corrupt politicians and governments. And I say governments because we're talking about both parties that have ruled Jamaica since independence. Diaspora talk programs have been described as talk shops and infotainment because they have provided some information, but they've engaged in tabloid activities without any meaningful action to correct the identified problems affecting our people at home and abroad. Well, I'm here to announce that things are changing. There are a few diaspora talk shows that are actively exposing the corruption, inadequacies, incompetence, etc. going on in Jamaica. And those talk shows are taking meaningful action. For example, we saw where Wayne Lonesome recently filed an action in the Jamaican Supreme Court asking for the forced retirement of the police commissioner. Some of you, particularly in the diaspora, because I hear a lot from you, have questioned the wisdom and the plausibility of the lawsuit. But I say to you, read the application, and if you do, I believe you'll support it. You'll support the effort. You'll support the man. You'll support the principle. We constantly complain that the diaspora is doing nothing to address the situation in Jamaica. And when one of us boldly and courageously decides to take action, we criticize without even reading the document. We can and we must do better than that. Now, here's the real new news. The Global Jamaica Diaspora Council, that should represent us in the diaspora, is nothing more than an organization that reports to the Jamaican government through the embassies and high commissions. This organization was established in 2020 by the Jamaican government, and the government has a significant say in the membership, particularly among the youth members. The Global Jamaica Diaspora Council is far removed from the bulk of the diaspora. And a lot of them, not all of them, let me stress that, not all of them, are there to burnish their images and develop relationships in order to get invitations to the tea parties, and other social functions, and also to get awards. They do not have our interest at heart and will not adequately, properly, and forcefully represent us before the government. In fact, the ones in America may be subject to prosecution for violating the Foreign Agents Registration Act. I've talked about it time and time again. Mark my words, at some point in time, there will be consequences for failure to obtain counsel and to file under the Foreign Agents Registration Act. This is no joke, ladies and gentlemen, no joke. So, new news. We're in the research stages of establishing a legal fund where we will target approximately 100,000 Jamaicans and friends of Jamaica at home and abroad to donate a minimum of $100 to establish a legal fund to address certain issues concerning the government in the Jamaican, US, UK, and Canadian courts. The money will also be used for public relations activities to address issues where necessary with donor countries and donor agencies. This, family, is going to be a game changer and will force this and future Jamaican governments to act in the best interests of the people and not themselves, not their families, and not their friends. They were, the politicians, elected to provide good governance, and when that doesn't happen, they must face legal consequences. The basic operational idea is that this legal construct will be operated by a reputable accounting firm. There'll be a team of legal advisors with a board of governors representing the diaspora communities in the UK, Canada, and the US. Additionally, general access will be provided to all so that we can see how the money is being spent and the purpose. Talk about operating in the sunshine. This is it. As I said, this plan is in a stage of infancy. And so I urge all of you to think about it and provide your comments because we're all in this together. Well, family, I'm excited to have as our first guest, Dr. Nadeen Spence. Dr. Spence has interviewed me on several occasions on CVM, but today we have a bit of role reversal. So we're going to have Dr. Spence first, and later on she'll be followed by Pastor Bobby. So let's see if we can bring her over and let's start the program. Okay, Dr. Spence, yeah man, turn on some light that we can see you man, and you know we operate in the sunshine.
Are you seeing me any better? It looked a little bit. Is it any better?
Yeah, it's a little bit better. Yeah.
Okay.
Casting a shadow, but that's fine. We'll see enough of you. We're going to hear a lot from you today. So, Doc, as I said earlier, it's a little bit of a role reversal because you've interviewed me, I think it's 2 or 3 times on CVM. And unfortunately, the times that you've interviewed me, we didn't get to really discuss the meat of the matter simply because of time constraints. Because usually when we come on, it's usually about 15 minutes or so. And all we have time for is just sound bites. And we really can't get into it. But today, as I promised you earlier, we'll have some time so we can discuss this issue in a fulsome matter because it deserves to be treated as such. And so, when I said this matter, I'm talking about the constitutional issue that we're faced with right now in Jamaica. But what I'd like to do is ask you to introduce yourself to our listening audience, listening and viewing audience, by answering this question. Who is Dr. Nadeen or Nadeen Spence?
It's Nadeen Spence. That's what my aunt named me, Nadeen. So my name is as you said, Nadeen Spence. I'm from St. Elizabeth, a place in St. Elizabeth called Kilmarnock. Um, I have been living in Kingston for over 20 years now. I work at the University of the West Indies. Um, as someone who studied politics, and my last degree, I studied gender and development studies. And I am very much interested in what is happening in my country, and I'm very involved in what is happening. A passion that my mother left me, which is interest in what is happening in the state, as in the nation, and just generally feeling and a sense of obligation to make sure that I'm part of what is happening in a positive way, meaning I'm helping to solve the problems that I think are most critical. So that's me. I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, and I am my mother's fifth daughter and my parents' 10th child. I'm the second to last one of misused Pitney. My mother died 5 years ago, and she was an important influence in my life and still continues to be. My father is 94 years old. He
God
just
bless
left my
him.
house. Very strong man. And I have family, of course, living in the US, in England, as all Jamaicans do, I imagine. So I travel often to those places. And yeah, that's who I am. I'm a I'm a proud Jamaican, if that is one way of a proud Jamaican at home who's always worked. I'm a trained teacher as well. Worked for my country. Yeah.
Quite an accomplished person. I tell you what, though, you caught me by surprise when you said you were a grandmother because you know look at you past 18. So I don't know how well you adopt them pick they are
No, my son turned 33 yesterday.
a lie.
And so I have two adorable, well, I have an adopted one as well. So three granddaughters. So I am the mother of the granddaughters, a grandmother of granddaughters. So
Okay.
yes,
All right.
I had,
Well, go
yeah.
ahead. Go ahead, please.
I was going to say I had my son at a young age. So
Oh, okay. Okay.
perhaps that explains it.
Okay. All right. Well, I tell you what, we decided to, I mean, you and I have to be forthright with the audience that we decided to have a conversation about the constitutional reform and what's going on there. Now, I was kind of, I was not shocked, but it just took me by surprise when I heard that you were chairing the subcommittee of the constitutional reform committee that's responsible for public engagement and communication. In fact, I'd reached out to someone, and they told me that no, you would be the ideal person because you are primarily responsible for the committee that will be doing the work, so to speak. And then it's gonna percolate to that level where they have, I think, 12 or so people that will be looking at it and then trying to make decisions as to how to go forward. Am I correct in that or no?
So there's the larger committee, which is the CRC, the Constitutional Review Committee, and on that committee is doing some of his work in subcommittees. So I am chairing the subcommittee, as you rightly said, that is in charge of public engagement and communications, which means that we arrive at what we think are some of the best ways to engage our publics, the different stakeholders that want to hear the information about the Constitution. And then we pass on the information to the larger group for approval and back to the ministry to do its work. Because remember now, we are volunteers, so we wouldn't actually be doing some of the underground work. That would be passed back to the ministry for the civil servants to actually do the work on the ground.
Okay. Now, and let me just say this to the audience. Feel free to call in, but remember you have to call in at 4:30 and 5:30. But there is no limit on or no time constraints or no reservations as to how you can address us in the chat room. So feel free and you can go ahead and post your questions there. But Dr. Spence, what exactly are you responsible for doing? I know you just mentioned some things a while ago, but can you say it in a granular fashion so that the average person on the street would understand? Because they hear about this constitutional reform committee and constitutional review committee, but it doesn't mean much to them. So as far as your committee or your subcommittee is concerned, what exactly, precisely, accurately, are you responsible for doing?
Okay, so let me start by telling you what we have come to conclude as to what we have done so far as to our work. So as you would have known, the committee, the Constitutional Reform Committee had its third meeting last week. So 3 weeks ago, the committee was named, right? The committee asked that I chair a committee to look at ways that we could engage the Jamaican public around this matter. So one of the things, so we decided that not only did we want to speak to Jamaicans, we also wanted to hear from Jamaicans. In respect of speaking to Jamaicans, it's establishing, a presence on mainstream media, talking to the different radio programs, television programs in Jamaica, making a concerted effort to be on the programs where people are so that people can ask questions, so that hosts can ask questions. So that's one. The other one is, in the print media, the traditional print media, making sure that there's a presence there. There are some Jamaicans who still pay much attention to what is happening in the print media. And, just generally, having a presence in traditional media, in new media, like on social media, with, having a presence on all the platforms that, and the appropriate messaging. We agreed on establishing a web page or a website, depending on what resources the ministry has available to it. We decided that we wanted to have a presence on, Twitter, Instagram, and so on. YouTube channel and so on. We also decided that we wanted to have the public come in and make presentations to the committee, and so invitations will be sent to specific groups of people to invite them in, but people could also send in their suggestions to an email address that has been created to facilitate the public submitting their ideas about how they see the process going, but also the recommendations that they would have for the committee. And as well, we talked about taking the committee on the road. In the initial stages, it is ensuring that we are in 3 or 4 parishes: the East, in Portland or St. Thomas, in Montego Bay, in Manchester, and I think there's a plan to go to St. Catherine. So 3 or 4 parishes to meet with, kind of like a regional tour, to meet with people and to talk to different civil society groups and business groups and, youth groups and so on. And to partner with, like the National Secondary Student Council, the Jamaica Union of Tertiary Students, to host debates on the process and on ideas around the process and so on. So we came up with a whole gamut of ideas around engaging Jamaicans, committed to using whatever strategies are necessary so that people are talking about the constitutional reform process.
Okay, now most Jamaicans, and I'm hazarding a guess here, most Jamaicans have never read the Jamaican Constitution in its entirety.
Yeah, I guess I would guess the same thing as you.
Okay, so, and a lot of Jamaicans, I don't know if I'd say most Jamaicans, but a lot of Jamaicans, they don't belong to any of the groups you just mentioned. Youth groups, business groups, civil society, they don't belong to any of those groups. So my question to you is this: how do you get those people involved? First, to have them understand what's in this document so that they can first have them understand what's in the document, and two, engage them so that they can talk to you in a meaningful, intelligent manner about things that they would like to see in this document, considering that most of them don't even know what's in the document.
Well, it's two ways of when we go on the tour. One of the things we want to do is to have meetings with the general Jamaicans, not just special groups, but to just have town halls and so on, where anybody can come. Where still you invite people still from specific community groups to be there, not just the regular Jamaican to come and one of the things you want to do now is through members of parliaments from both sides is to say to people, get your community groups active, because part of our political organization in Jamaica is structured is that each party is supposed to have their members of parliament who have their specific groups in their parishes, in their constituency, and that these groups are engaged in the process of community and civic engagement. So one of the things that we talked about is engaging the members of parliament across both parties to put their groups on watch to start having those conversations. So one of the reasons for the visits is to have town halls in each of the parishes that we mentioned. We're just the average Jamaican. Anybody who wants to come and say something can come and say something. And those will be advertised across the parishes that would be impacted. As well, when we talk, Jamaicans like to call in and talk on the radio. So we want to engage through, some of the more popular radio programs where people can call in, where people can share their views and share their opinions on matters related to the Constitution, and also to encourage people, even outside of the earshot of the committee, to start to put their groups together and to start having those conversations, and to invite even committee members or other experts that they know to come and present to them or facilitate conversations if they want to invite them. So, we have to think of abroad, and we're not done as it relates to what are the possible avenues we can explore. We're still thinking through strategies we can employ to make sure that as a wider cross-section of Jamaicans are engaged in the process of the discussions that are necessary around Constitution and constitutional reform.
Okay. Now, one group that you didn't mention, well, before I even ask you about that group, is there, as far as your committee is concerned, do you have ideas about the Constitution that you would like to impart to people, as opposed to them telling you, first of all, you're educating them, and then they're telling you what they would like to see in it, or what they would like to see removed? Do you have any notions as to what should be removed from the Constitution, as opposed to just educating people and say, what do you guys want? Does the committee
that's one of the things I said, Jamaicans can articulate what they would like to see, what they would like to happen, what they would like. Because remember, this first part, so the Constitutional Reform Committee, now as it is constituted, has a terms of reference that was put forward, and the terms of reference speaks about working in 3 phases. Yesterday, when you and I had a conversation, we talked about the provisions in the Constitution that makes it necessary for the constitutional work to be organized in a particular way. This phase, the first phase, is very, very technical, very much the very difficult phase that over time political parties in government have shied away from, because in order for it to happen, it does involve the Jamaican people voting on it. So no change can take place in these provisions unless there's a referendum, and unless the people on the voters list vote and say yes to these changes. And they are the deeply entrenched provisions. So one of the things we want to do, first of all, is talk to people about what these provisions are. And one of the things from public conversation that we know over time is that Jamaicans are in agreement across both political parties and so on. Jamaicans are in agreement about these changes, such as the change from constitutional.
Doc, let me stop you right there. Your voice is becoming a bit thin.
Oh, are you hearing me any better? I'm not sure why.
No, not as before. It's very
I
thin.
haven't changed position at all. I'm
Yeah, I
right.
know.
I'm right.
All right.
It's it's still you're still not hearing me well?
It's very thin, but we're experts at reading lips too, so
Oh no, I'm sorry about that.
No, no, no. You can
So
go
I
ahead.
think Jamaicans have, I think, over time gotten to the point where people are in agreement, for example, that they want to become a republic. They no longer want to be a constitutional monarchy. And so, because of that, and as I said before, that the work of this committee isn't starting out, isn't being started from, ground zero. Since 1977, there has been consistent talk and, you know, work and organizing around this matter of the change to a republic. So there is a general consensus around these changes that are now being proposed. And the main change, of course, is Jamaica being changed from a constitutional monarchy to a referendum, to a republic.
Mm-hmm.
And so at this stage, that is the views that are, that is the matter that is at hand. I suspect in the other two phases, there will be more contentious viewpoints and perspectives, and people will want to articulate more clearly their position on certain things, right? But not yet. In this first phase, it's basically what are the critical changes that must be undertaken, but which require referendum and getting the people to because as I said before, these changes require consultation with the people. If the people do not vote a yes to these changes, they won't happen. We're going to remain as a constitutional monarchy. So no, nothing can be done here that the Jamaican people are not fully au fait with and consent to.
Right. But this is just one issue, and there are other issues that you don't for to be amended in the Constitution where you don't have to have a referendum. Am I correct on that?
There are other issues, but those issues are not issues that are under discussion now. So this current phase of the Constitution is expected to come to an end, I think, on the 31st of May, because that process of the changes being proposed themselves, the Constitution says, must be debated in the House of Representatives. And so, in any case, they are going to be debated publicly by both houses,
Mm-hmm.
and then take to the people for a referendum.
No, I don't know. Maybe it's because of the voice quality that I didn't hear you say this. But this phase of the committee's work, is it only to determine whether or not Jamaica should become a republic, or are there other issues in this phase along with that?
So there are other deeply entrenched issues. When you decide that Jamaica is going to become a republic, there are some attendant conversations that you must have, such as because a republic is headed by a head of state called a president. So a question to be answered is, what kind of president would Jamaica like to see? Would Jamaica want to see an executive president, or what we call a non-executive president? Um, would That's one question that we're having, and whether or not we are going to say Jamaica or you're going to say the Republic of Jamaica, for example. There are other matters in these deeply entrenched provisions, such as citizenship. Commonwealth citizenship right now gives one the right to sit in our house, any house, and to vote in an election the same rights a Jamaican citizen would have. There are Jamaicans who have articulated the perspective that they do not want that right to be extended to Commonwealth citizens. There are Jamaicans in the diaspora who have expressed opinions that they think they should be given the right to hold dual citizenship and still be able to sit in one of the houses. That they shouldn't lose their right to Jamaican citizenship, for example. And so there are some provisions as well that are called
the matter of the deeply held provisions and the question of do we want to have deeply entrenched provisions again in our new constitution? Do we require a referendum again? Should we change that provision? For example, Barbados doesn't have that, nor did Trinidad, so it was easier for them to move to republic status. Nor did Guyana. I'm not sure if Guyana had that, but if you notice that we're one of the last countries of the big of the bigger Caribbean islands who are just moving to thinking about republic, not thinking about, but are taking the steps to engage in the process of changing to having a referendum to become a republic, and part of that is because of these deeply entrenched provisions. So those are some other matters, and with, as I said, we changed to republicanism, kind of cascades some other changes, such as the matter of presidency. So even though it starts out as one, there are other corresponding or resulting changes that would be necessary.
Now, I remember back in 1977 when the talk came up about Jamaica becoming a republic. And you mentioned that there have been talks since 1977 regarding this issue. Why has it taken this long to get it resolved?
I'd say this: Jamaica has had constitutional reform over time. We've done different things. I'm looking for a paper that I got from Dr. Barnett, who is a part of the committee and or a constitutional expert. And so some of the changes that we've made over time, I'm sure you will know that in 2011, Jamaica replaced Chapter 3 with what is called the Charter of Rights. So that was significant reform. That we have had other changes related to citizenship, moving from 18 who votes, at what age you can vote in our election, and we moved from 21 to 18. The matter of how you gain citizenship. There was a time, for example, when there wasn't any citizenship through your mother. That was changed. So we have had different pieces of reform over time. But this matter of these deeply held, deeply entrenched provisions that require the country going to a referendum, this has been what we have been stuck on, because Jamaica is referendum shy. Since 1961, when we had the referendum around federation, Jamaica has been hesitant to go to referendum again. And so we have not had a very we have not had a very positive, I think, feedback to this idea of going to a referendum. And in my opinion, this is what has kind of held us back as we have thought through this particular change. Because, as I said before, we have taken on other changes to the Constitution, but this one has been persistent, hasn't? Even though the proposals have been made, the consultations have been had, the discussion is in the public, it hasn't really led to, the kind of change that I think. And then over time, Jamaicans have had different opinions on this matter of remaining a constitutional monarchy. There were people over time who would not have wanted that change and stated it. But I think over time that sentiment has changed, and I think more than ever, Jamaicans have indicated that they want to move from a constitutional monarchy.
Yeah, I'm just curious because, as you said, they've made some significant changes in the Constitution. And you mentioned some of them. The Charter of Rights, right? Citizenship, voting age. Those are significant amendments to the Constitution. And
the oath of allegiance, if you remember, first time we used to say, when Flores and Gaspol used to swear in people, we used to talk about to Queen Elizabeth her ear, we used to vow an oath of allegiance to them. That was changed as well in 2002. So we've had changes over time. Yes, sorry about that.
all right. Well, the reason why I'm stuck on this is because these are significant changes. And so the question is, why haven't we addressed this issue that we're addressing now? And I'm thankful that we're addressing it now, but the question is, we're addressing it now, but it doesn't mean that we're going to resolve it now, because We have discussed this, like you said, going back to 1977, and we've kicked the can down the road, and we've addressed other issues, but not the issue of a republic. And so I'm just, I'm a bit leery to say, well, what will this constitutional committee, what will these constitutional committees, what will they achieve in the end? Because we've had this before. And before you answer that question, let me ask you another question. I was at a town hall meeting in September 2016 in Queens, New York. And on that stage, we had the Prime Minister, we had the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, and we had, I think we had Mr. Nigel Clark at the time. He wasn't the Minister of Finance at that time. But we had those two significant figures on the stage. And promises were made to the diaspora that, look, we're working on getting a mechanism so that you people, you Jamaicans living abroad, that you can vote. And also that you people, you Jamaicans living abroad, that you can take a seat in the Senate. Now, mind you, this was 2016, September 2016. Here we are, April 2023. And that issue has not been resolved. Can you shed some light on that?
So I'm actually looking at as I said to you before, there was a committee that sat, right, in early 1900s, and I think somewhere around 93 to 95, that committee made its recommendations to Parliament. So let me answer the one first. Now, that recommendation talks about expanding the number of seats in the Senate and allowing, different groups of people. I'm trying to read through as it is to see if I can, to have a seat in the Senate, and I think that's what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But in response to that, from what I know, I can't speak specifically to what was said to you, but from what I know about this reform process, is that for that to happen, you have to have constitutional reform.
Mm-hmm.
For constitutional reform of this nature to happen, that which is deeply entrenched, expanding how many people sit in our Senate, you have to go to a referendum. So even though we might have had a lot of proposals over time that says this is what we want to happen in respect of some of these deeply entrenched provisions, if the committee does its work, which we have seen that the committees over time have done their work and have made suggestion as to what these changes could be, if these changes are not taken through the process to referendum by the political party in power, by the government and the opposition, because it requires both government and opposition working together. If that doesn't happen, then those changes are not going to be made. So we are here now. Yes, there's another committee sitting, another constitutional reform committee sitting. But when we are done our work, it's not just taking it and saying this is what is going to happen. There's a process that has to be undertaken, which involves a referendum. And unless this happens, you can recommend from now till 2045, nothing will be enacted. It has to be followed through by the process that is outlined for constitutional reform and for the reform of deeply entrenched provisions such as that one.
Okay. Which will just explain to people the sequence of events. Will it be the referendum followed by the amendment to the Constitution, or is it the other way around?
So let me read for you. Legal process for major constitutional change.
Mm-hmm.
It requires a bill has to be introduced
Mm-hmm.
for debate in the Senate. When it is introduced, it takes 3 months for you to move that bill to a third reading. So you have time in the Senate. 2/3 of the majority in both houses, the Senate and the House of Representatives, must be submitted to a referendum to obtain a simple majority. If 2/3 majority in House of Senate, but not in the Senate, and six months have elapsed, then it may be submitted to a referendum and will then require 2/3 approval of the electorate.
So if the bill has to be read in both houses, there has to be 3 months between when it is first introduced and its first reading and its third reading. After it is read, after there is a debate, the conversation in the Senate and the House of Representatives about it, then both houses have to vote on it, and they have to vote in a 2/3 majority.
Mm-hmm.
After both houses have voted on it, Senate 2/3, parliamentarians 2/3, then it is taken to the public for a referendum. At that point, the public has to vote on it. And the voting requirement is a simple majority. If there is no simple majority from the public, from the electors who are registered to vote, then it has to go back and start the process again. 6 months have to pass and so on. So it's a very tedious process.
Well, let me ask.
Major changes.
Let me ask a question. What's your best guesstimate that this is going to take place? From where you are right now.
I know this minister is very serious. So as we are in the room discussing, we are actually going through the proposals that were made, and we are being guided by the Attorney General as to the legality of the proposed changes. What are some of the requirements to ensure that the changes can follow? Because you know, when you make constitutional changes, you can have people coming forward to say, you know, that change cannot happen the way you have proposed it, or it has consequences for some other changes. So it involves detailed discussion about this particular change and then the other changes that are necessary to make this change work. So for now, our terms of reference has until the end of May for it to be taken for debate in the House. So bill has to be developed by the end of May, right? Be taken to the House for debate. So if at the end of May you don't see a bill, then you know that we are either delayed or, you know, but for now it's by the end of May. But the thing about this time is that we are not starting from scratch, right? As I said before, we have already had serious work done on this process. It's just that it was never taken to the point where the conversations were had in the House.
All right. Now let me stop you right there. Is it May of this year?
Yes, May of this year.
Okay. Now we're financially embarrassed when it comes to paying for houses, right? Building houses for people. We're financially embarrassed when it comes to providing medical services for people. We're financially embarrassed when it comes to infrastructure, education. In fact, we're financially embarrassed when it comes to having local elections. We're being told that there is no money. Having said that, my question to you is this. Where is the money coming from to pay for this? Because you're talking about elections. Well, not elections, but voting, which is people who are qualified voters. They have to go if there's a referendum and vote. So this is going to cost money. Where is there a budget for this? And if yes, or if no, where is the money going to come from if we don't have a budget for this?
Well, as you would well know, I know you're making your point, but you would know that I can't answer that. I'm working on the Constitutional Review Committee. We're looking at the...
Now I'm asking you, I know.
We're looking at the substance of the Constitution. The logistics of it is really not a part of the TOR's, the terms of reference for my committee. So I can't answer that one, to be honest.
But let me ask you this. Do you know the answer but you can't answer, or you can't because you don't know?
It's not. It's, as I say, it's not part of what the committee is deliberating on.
Okay.
So I wouldn't have an informed
All
perspective
right.
on it. And it's not something that I
Well, let me
can
ask you the
add
question. Let me ask
an
you the
opinion.
question this way then. Are you concerned that you're putting in all of this time because you love Jamaica, you're a patriot, and you want to see the changes made to the constitution so that people's lives can be better? But at the back of your mind, you're thinking, well, wait a minute. And by the way, it's volunteer work. You mentioned that. And so the
Mhm.
time that you could spend with your grandchildren, here it is that now you have to spend time with a committee and going over all of this, but you're doing it for a noble cause. Does it ever, do you ever think about that and say, wait a minute, but after all is said and done, because we've had committees since going back to the 1970s and nothing of, nothing of this nature got done. Yes, we did get some things done, but nothing of this magnitude. Am I wasting my time here? What if they don't have the money to pay for it? Does it ever cross your mind? I'm asking.
I think so there is always the worry that, I hope, not the worry, but the concern, I hope this really yields results. And I think whichever group of Jamaican over time has gone into this process of, being asked to serve on any committee or to give service to country where you expect to see results, you are wondering, will this yield what we had worked towards? So yes, I have those concerns. You have to say to yourself, why did it take us so long? Trinidad has been a republic for so long. Guyana has been a republic for so long. Barbados, you have to ask those questions and wonder. But I think one of the things I am learning is that Jamaica is a very particular country, and the people who drafted our constitution gave us a very particular constitution that I think we are the only people who have a constitution with these deeply entrenched provisions, and they have caused some concerns to our policymakers and lawmakers across both sides of the political aisle. Because it involves, as you rightfully said, engaging Jamaicans in a way around a matter that is difficult to engage them on, right? That's one. So am I concerned that it might not go anywhere? I am, but I try not to focus on that one. I'm giving this my best shot. I'm doing what is required, and I hope it yields the result that I would like to see. I would like to see Jamaica as a republic. I would like to see us move away from the vestiges of colonialism. I would like us to finish the independence project. And so I'm committed to that. And I hope that we have the kind of legislators who will move on it this time, who will not be afraid of how the people might vote, but will do what is necessary to get the people to understand the substance of the arguments we are deliberating, and then trust that once that is done, the people will make the right decision. Because invariably, this is a decision that Jamaicans will take.
Well, let me just say to the listening audience that we're coming up on a commercial break, but the doctor and I, we're going to go through the commercial break. So if you're listening to us on the radio, then please mute the radio, go over to this the live stream, and you can catch us there, because this subject is far, far too significant for us to take breaks right now. People are asking for this information, and it's our duty and our responsibility to get it to them in a fulsome way. Doc, next question.
Yeah.
You said that a while ago. You said, "Look, yes, there's a little bit of concern that this thing might not go anywhere, but I'm not focused on that. I'm focused on the work at hand. I'm focused on getting this thing done, and I believe that Jamaica should be a republic." Are there other well, tell us about the other provisions, if there are other provisions in the Constitution that you would like to see changed. And the reason I ask you this, and I should have prefaced it by saying that I was given the impression that the people looking at the Constitution, they're coming at it from an objective perspective, saying, okay, we're going to collect this information, we're going to talk to people about it, and then we're going to see what they say. So I was a little bit, how do you say it? Surprised when you said that I'm for Jamaica becoming a republic. So right away it kind of tells me what the mindset is when you go into this, because you're in it saying that I want Jamaica to be a republic, and therefore I'm going to do everything to lead to that conclusion.
So if I had another perspective, I wouldn't have said yes to this committee, because this committee, as I said to you before, it's prefaced on the work of other committees. And as I said before, this work of constitutional reform has been going on for a while. And this committee is doing its work, reviewing the work of other committees which have recommended constitutional reform and change from constitutional monarchy to a republic.
Okay.
So in a referendum, what we would have is two sides based on more than likely political position, choosing one way or the other. The reason why this looks this way is in Jamaica, where you would have those two sides looking at the issue from two different perspectives, there has been a large degree of consensus between the two political parties on this matter of constitutional reform and Jamaica becoming a republic. So the PNP and the JLP as parties are very much singing from the same
book.
Hymn sheet, yeah.
Okay.
Where this particular matter is, there are other issues that they disagree on. One of the matters they might be disagreeing on, but that is not up for discussion just yet, is a matter of the Privy Council and the Caribbean Court of Justice. But for right now, the issues that we are discussing, Will, are issues that both parties are in agreement with. So you don't have an active yes vote, you don't have an active no vote.
Okay.
If you think about referendums too, what you have is an obligation on the part of both parties to speak to Jamaicans about what the issues mean, and Jamaicans still have the option to vote no. So it means that they have to be sufficiently informed so that they want to go out and vote.
Okay. You've made it clear that your position is Jamaica should be a republic.
Right.
What's your position on enhanced security measures as stated in the Constitution? And I ask you that because in the Constitution, it clearly says that states of emergency are duly authorized or should be duly authorized in three instances: insurrection, natural disasters, and the third is, remind me, insurrection, natural disasters, there's a war, right? If there's a war between Jamaica and another country, then you can call a state of emergency. An insurrection would be like the Tivoli incursion, right? But it doesn't appear, based on my reading of the Constitution, that it's something that should be done as a regular part of law enforcement. So, what is your position on SOEs in the Constitution?
So I say this. This is not, I don't want to speak as if I'm speaking for the Constitutional Reform Committee, because this issue is not an issue that is being discussed at the committee at the stage that we're at right now.
Okay.
Right? So I don't want to speak about that.
All right.
If you ask me as a...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
If you ask me as a Jamaican living in Jamaica, you know, what do you think of states of emergency, and how do you think they have been working? I will perhaps tell you that I'm sitting on the fence. I see how those of us who are living in states of insecurity and who feel desperate about the situation in Jamaica, the kind of murder rate that we have, are seeking some kind of reprieve from it, and who are careful to say we need some kind of police presence. I don't know if that means a state of emergency, but I think for now that's what people are using.
Well,
that's what is being used. So my own take on it is that I am on the fence. You know, I understand the constitutional provisions, and I understand that in a country that is engaged in a particular kind of democracy, that's not where we want to go. That's not the ideal. But the political scientist in me says, you know, democracies don't work the way that we expect them to do most times. They have to serve the interests of the people. And so I say that because this is something that I grapple with. You know, this is not an issue that I come down easy on any side with, because it's not the reality, as you know, Will, is not an easy reality in Jamaica to come to terms with in terms of the murder rate. And so for me, I'm telling you the truth, as a person, as a Jamaican living in Jamaica, as a citizen, I'm plugging my phone into it. I never realized
Okay.
it was.
Okay.
It's a challenge for me. I can't tell you definitively. This is my position. And
All right. And obviously we're joined by my good friend Herb Nelson there, so I'll bring him in a second. But let me just ask you this. Considering that the Constitution provides for states of emergency in 3 instances and 3 instances only: war, insurrection, natural disasters. Why would you still be on the fence? It doesn't say anything about law enforcement. So why would you still be on the fence? Why wouldn't you then, because you've read the Constitution, why wouldn't you say, you know what? I may have some other feelings about it, but constitutionally, it's wrong to use states of emergency to combat crime in Jamaica.
I'm not sure why. As I tell you, I explained to you what my position is on it. I think, as I tell you, I'm sitting on the fence where that is concerned. I think when you are, when you are in a situation, when you live in a reality where there are certain decisions that are imperative and critical, sometimes your first go-to is not your constitutional provisions. And that's why constitutional review is important, because the powers that be, those who sit in the legislature, ought to see when an issue is presenting a challenge for the population. And so they should go to review and reform, so that people can always act in accordance. A constitution is a tool of a process. It's not, it doesn't sit by itself. Where constitutional review is necessary to ensure that citizens are able to act legally and within the remit of the Constitution, those who have the power to do so must update and reform. A Constitution is a living, breathing document. And so for me, the conversation here is not whether or not it is unconstitutional. The way the provisions know in the Constitution, perhaps never imagined this Jamaica this way. So what has happened is when we are forced to act unconstitutionally, as you are pointing out, is it because people are seeking to act unconstitutionally, or because those who have the power to ensure that the Constitution becomes a living, breathing document that responds to the imperative of the people that it should, that they haven't done their work to make it, to allow it to get to the point where it does what it is supposed to do?
Well, I agree with you that the Constitution is a living, breathing document, but not the violation of it. So while it's there and you can make changes to it because it's not static, it's supposed to be dynamic, it's supposed to change with the times. If those changes have not been made, then you still have to abide by it. You cannot say, well, you know what, times have changed and therefore desperate times call for desperate measures. And so we're going to violate the Constitution. That's unacceptable. But let me ask you, before I bring Herb in, a friend of mine he sent me a question here for you. It's very long, and I think you've answered some of this already. And if I ask you the question that you've already answered, just please forgive me. Just say ask and answered. He says, given the facts as they are that our society, for several reasons, is not by and large a literary society. The Constitution means very little, if anything, to Jamaicans by and large. The number one concern for Jamaicans is economic well-being, which remains largely elusive. To embark on any engagement of Jamaicans becoming involved is going to require a massive program of educational proportion, and one that can instill a feeling of benefit. We discussed that. Jamaicans seemingly don't have any feelings of involvement given our history and the flagrant incompetence and corruption of elements in our governments. Our independent government continue to mirror our colonial masters, both in hold on a second, both in structure and practice. So here's a question. Question is, to what degree will the committee take these factors into consideration? And you started answering the second question, which is, please define what a constitution is and its purpose in nation building. I know it's a lot. If you want me to go over it, I gladly will.
Okay.
You want me to repeat it?
Define
I,
what a constitution is
I
and
can kind of
its
condense it if you want me to.
Because I lost you a little bit. The last question, is that the question?
Please define what a
The last,
Please define what a constitution is and its purpose in nation building.
okay. So this is the Jamaican Constitution. I don't know if you're seeing it.
I am seeing it.
All right, that's the Jamaican Constitution. The Jamaican Constitution is a document that was, now we've discovered, I'm finding out, it was known before, that this is actually a British law. Our Constitution is British law that was made by British people. Made by British people, but there were Jamaicans who contributed to the making of it. It was done in Jamaica. Some parts of it apparently were done in Britain. I don't remember which parts of it now, but it was done in Jamaica. Constitutions, I look at constitutions in the same way I look at those organizations or those institutions that serve the process of nationhood and democratic processes, because I believe in nation and I believe in a democracy. And so for me, a constitution is not an end, it's a means to an end.
Mm-hmm.
And for people like me, from the perspective which I sit, a constitution ought to serve the needs of the people.
Mm-hmm.
And when a constitution no longer, it's supposed to help a people to find solutions, and it's some critical agreed on principle that people who have the responsibility for leadership in a society ought to be able to understand the pulse of the people. Mm-hmm. And say, okay, this is what would be some good principles for us to organize ourselves around.
Okay.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I think people who live in America have a very different relationship with the Constitution than people who live in Jamaica.
Why do you say that?
Jamaica is what, 61 years old? America is how old? So there's a way in which over time the citizenry in America has learned the value of the Constitution. Yeah. You have to give us time in Jamaica so that we begin to understand its relevance to us, especially because its birth did not come from our experience. The fact that I am divorced from this Constitution has nothing to do with the quality of my citizenship, you know. It has to do with how this Constitution was birthed. And the principle that followed constitutions for people like me up until the 1960s. For people like me up until the 1960s, my birth was a crime. Mm-hmm. So I have a much more apathetic relationship to a constitution than a white person who lives in Britain, mm-hmm. who was always recognized and revered as a citizen. I have decided that it will take perhaps 2 more generations and another set of critical engagement with this constitution. This is my opinion now, nobody not tell me this. This is me based on my evaluation of how other countries have grown to engage their constitution. It will take a little more time for Jamaicans to develop a constitution that they are comfortable with and that they see work with them, so that they begin to quote and use it the way Americans now use theirs.
Okay.
If you notice, the British people never had a written constitution, and they never, even when they gave us a constitution, they never had a written one.
Isn't that interesting? Anyway, let me bring in Herb Nelson Jr. now. Herb, welcome. You have a question for the doctor or a statement you'd like to make, sir? Herb.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, we lost the
You
doc.
hearing me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but
Doc,
oh yeah, go ahead. You can ask a question. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hearing.
okay, all right, thank you. Good afternoon to you, ma'am, and to all your listeners there. Um, the future Supreme Court Justice of Jamaica, Wilfred Rattigan. Um, if you would second that for me, I'd appreciate it. Um, now, listen, I've been listening. As an information guru, a person who appears on CVM, and I watch
I'm
you.
not an information guru, sir. I do a show on CVM, not an information guru.
Well, you're still imparting knowledge to the population, like a good teacher should, right?
Okay.
Okay,
Yes, I'm
all
still
right.
a deceased.
Now, why is it that we don't in the diaspora, and maybe I'm wrong, but is there a website that outlines the entire constitutional reform process from start to finish, gives you the various committees, right? And gives you a step-by-step map that you can track along as to what is going on. In other words, transparency.
There's not one now, but I have been informed that one is currently being constructed.
Okay, because I would think that that would answer a lot of the questions that.
And I agree with you. And we have asked on the reform committee and on the public, and we have asked for one to be done. And I was told that it's in the process of being constructed.
Okay, all right, very good. Uh, voting in Jamaica in the past exceeded 70%, even 90% after independence. The last election, voting dropped to 30%, might have been less. There's a known fact that the JPS repeats only 30% of Jamaicans, and they were trying to indicate how many Jamaicans are actually responsible. Only 30% of Jamaicans pay their light bill, pay the electric bill, right?
I don't know that as a fact. I would have to do my own research on that.
Well, I mean, they have the registration and they do their surveys, right? So I had no reason to doubt them. So if we're gonna take their word at face value, let's say 30% vote, 30% pay electric bill, right? Where are the other 70% and their level of comprehension to fully embrace constitutional change and to understand the changes that are coming down the pike, right? Your teacher, can you say that 70% it would be the same equivalency of the 30% who vote and who actually pay the electric bill? Their level of understanding as to, and probably pay taxes as well. I don't know if you have any numbers.
I don't have that kind of negative view of Jamaicans, because me one of them too. You know what I mean? So I don't think that way. I don't think it's 30%. I'm looking as we speak. I'm looking as we speak to see where that number would come from. But I don't hold that negative view of Jamaicans. I think our particular political history has caused Jamaicans to be wary of the partisan political process. And I think people like me who were born in the 70s, when we raised our children to view with cynicism, and perhaps rightly so at the time, the whole business of politics and its promise for the newly independent Jamaica in 1962 and what was delivered. And I think that is why people stay away from the polls, because people feel that there's nothing in it for them. But I think if you might also recognize that globally, people are staying away from elections and people are becoming increasingly cynical about democracies. And so even though, in the last elections, I think there are several factors that might have caused it to be as low as it was, and it was low. But I think there are a lot of other things that are not working in the interest of democracies now globally. And part of them is growing skepticism about governments. This is not new to Jamaica. It's happening in other countries around the world. So I don't think that Jamaicans are people who are just illiterate and dishonest. I think that we have a negative view of ourselves. That's one. I think as well that we don't take into consideration all of the other factors that have caused us to get to this point. And I think when we are thinking about ourselves, I think we ought to give ourselves a little bit more credit for some of the realities that still cause our country to have one of the most active democracies of
Is this the number?
what I mean? We're not that bad.
Right. Okay, I hear you. But let me ask you this.
Is this the calling number?
No. Hold on one second, caller. Hold on one second, caller.
The education
Okay.
System in Jamaica as a presenter, surely you must have some idea as to the at what reading level, what fog index you have to clear up so that people can understand this whole process, can understand everything that's coming out of the mouth of our former Attorney General, and can understand everything that you say to them, right? Or is it that when you go on the road and you go to community by community, how do you know which communities? Do you have a graphic that tells you at what level you got to speak to this community for them to fully grasp and understand what's coming down the pike so that they can actually go out and enthusiastically vote on it?
On the language of any constitution anywhere in the world is difficult to understand because of the tendency to engage legalese and to make it, and because constitutions tend to be technical. I understand that. I know that Jamaicans speak a different language, speak different languages. So there's English and there's Jamaican. I'll answer that in two ways. One, my own opinion that and I don't think that I speak in such a way that the average Jamaican doesn't understand me. My father is 94 years old, was born in Kilmarnock, St. Elizabeth, and he and I have had conversations about the last referendum, and he speaks Jamaican. He's not somebody who speaks English. I grew up in rural Jamaica. I mean, I don't think that there is that huge divide in how we communicate so that the average Jamaican is not going to understand when we do. That's one. But secondly, part of our plan is to engage the language unit at UE around ensuring that the information that we are discussing in respect of the changes are also represented in Jamaican. Right. But as you know, Jamaican is a written system. It's not a writing system. So even writing it down in Jamaican doesn't mean that the average Jamaican will access it, because we are more popular with our talk than we are with our writing.
So phonetically, they will grasp, but if you write it, then you're talking about reading comprehension levels now. So, but it's easier to get across to them with phonetics, right? Speaking patois.
Yeah, speaking. There are some Jamaicans who might,
I speak in Jamaican, as you said, Doc. But listen, I understand the point. Let me just take this caller, this call here. Caller, go ahead. You have a question for Dr. Spence?
Good afternoon, panel. Good afternoon, Mr. Rattigan. How are you? Lion in the house here.
Yes, sir. Doing well, Lion.
Yeah, wonderful. I just want to add something, if I may. Not so much of a question to the doctor, nor her, nor yourself, but just to participate in the discussion for a minute or two. I think what we should have in mind There's a statement that was emphasized by Senator Tavares Finson, and he made one statement, and he emphasized, even in his breathing technique, the expression when he said it, that changing the Constitution, or in regards to referendum, I'm not quoting him there, but here he said, it is deeply entrenched. Now, keep that phrase as the preamble. What we are normally discussing, whether it's corruption or whether it is constitution, we always seem to be going around the symptomatic aspect of the situation. What are the problems? What the problems necessitate, etc., etc. Instead of the systematic, or this is system. The problem that is being experienced in Jamaica, as we are speaking collectively, is systematic. Now, for that to be remedied, you must remember that when we are in school and you get 7% or 9% overall, that sounds like you're being expelled from the school. Now, I'm making reference to the leader of the country with a 93% unfavorable rating, leaving him with what, 7%? The Minister of Security, National Security, 91%. I don't know if I'm quoting the right percentage, but they're all in the 90s. They're getting a below 10% approval consistently, and they should be expelled. There's no system in place where they can be expelled without the conclusionary bodies of the PNP and the JLP coming together and saying, okay, let's do that. The people do not have a third channel whereby they can say, because of unfavorability, lack of performance, there is no confidence, so let's take it to a referendum. I beg your participation, Doctor, and I beg your participation, Herb and Rattigan.
Doc? Doc?
Yes.
Yes, he's asking you to comment on his statement.
I don't agree with his statements, so I'm not gonna comment on them. I don't know. So here what me say, Will.
Yeah.
Me live in Jamaica. It's not because me couldn't live in foreign, I mean I live in foreign. Me live in Jamaica.
Right.
Normally when I hear diaspora people comment on Jamaica, me not like the Jamaica I want to describe.
It's funny you hold on a second, Doc. Doc, it's funny you mentioned that.
And it sounds like all of
No, hold on a
I
second,
don't
Doc.
like that description because there are some of us who are living here.
No, Doc.
And the description of the diaspora
Doc.
Jamaicans about Jamaica, it's a very
No,
sad
Doc,
thing.
Doc, listen to me for a second. This scholar lives in Jamaica. Lion,
Well, it does sound.
In the bush,
just tell her what parish you're in, sir.
I'm in Trelawney, in the bush.
Okay. So it's not calling from the diaspora.
Okay. And so all right. So I don't know what he wanted me to comment on.
You want to clarify, Lion?
I heard him talk about.
Yes, my major emphasis in what I said a while ago is that we have to be careful not to be misdirected, albeit with good intentions, discussing solutions that are only dealing with the symptoms.
So
we need to address the symptomatic aspect of it.
Remember the deeply entrenched provisions, you know, sir, speak to how you change certain aspects of the Constitution. So
these are the things you do to change certain aspects of the Constitution, and part of that is you have to go to both houses and then you have to go to the electorate. That is what is meant by deeply entrenched. You also mentioned favorability and polls. Jamaica has a very stable democracy with elections where both parties change power whenever they lose at the polls. I don't think there's anything. For now, that's how democracies operate. And so when there's an election, the people have a right, and Jamaicans always do that, to go out and change government at as they see fit. I respect that process. And my commitment is whenever a government comes from that process, it happens to be my government. And I support that government. And where
Can I say this, please? If I might interject, please excuse me. You mentioned a problem a while ago, or a concern, that in regards to the Constitution, comparing United States citizenry that is over 2 centuries old compared to Jamaica, which is only 6 decades, a little bit over 6 decades, that the people need time to be educated and to, I don't know if I want to say the word evolve into understanding what the Constitution is, but I tell you, looking at that's a symptomatic side. Looking at the systematic problem is that these politicians never campaigned on the form of educating people, lest they would have by now, even at the time of Google, been more acquainted with the Constitution. They just use jargons and appeal to their desires and their lusts just to get them to cooperate. And they have been bought like a well-paid prostitute to perform whenever the client is in town.
You know, let me just add a piece. Let me just add an observation. You know,
Yeah.
Doc, this gentleman speaking to you on the phone, he and I went to Meadowbrook. We were in the same class. He's living in Jamaica. And so it kind of took me by surprise when you didn't ask where he was from, but you kind of just assume that, okay, if he's criticizing this.
It's a diaspora show that we're having, so
No, but we're getting calls from all over. We're getting calls from Jamaica.
Okay.
Some of the questions I'm asking you.
Next time I'll hear the comments, I'll ask where it's coming from.
Okay, because some of the questions I'm asking you, they're coming from Jamaica. So
okay.
Right. So
But
all right.
though that under any government, my description of life in Jamaica wouldn't sound like that.
Okay.
Just saying, under any government, my description of life in Jamaica, who Jamaicans are and how we deal with our problems wouldn't sound like that. So I think as well, I don't know, that's just me saying, I certainly don't view Jamaica in that light, or Jamaicans. I think there's a lot that we have done wrong. And I think
I can understand what she's trying to say.
Yeah. No. Hold on. Let her finish. Let her finish, and then.
Yes.
Go ahead, Doc.
Yeah.
I don't want to quarrel, and I don't want to have we were supposed to be talking about the Constitution, so
Right,
I want to
right,
stick
right,
to
right.
that.
Right.
But I don't want to get in a quarrel, but I just wanted to say it depends on the perspective. There's a saying that goes, the angle you look from determines the gains. It depends on where you're looking from.
Right.
So I'm saying,
Can I ask you a direct question, Doctor, please?
Yeah, but
you...
Lion, hold on 1 second. What I'm getting from the doctor is that she's here to discuss Constitution. So if it's a constitutional
I'm on the mark, man. I'm on the mark.
Okay.
And we have never diverted.
Okay.
What is taking place in France right now, vis-a-vis the demonstrations all over France? Would you consider that a democratic behavior?
Of course.
Okay. I was just discussing previously that the people need another channel that is not dependent upon the approval and the acceptance of those that are in collusion vis-a-vis the JLP and the PMP party. It's like you're going to put mongoose for watch, Folko. It don't make sense. there is a democratic way. We're not talking about something to create destruction and mayhem. I'm talking the people are already up to their necks. And the only reason why it is not galvanized properly is because they have been divided amongst themselves. Even those that are complaining and those who have solutions to give, they are also divided amongst themselves. And it's not coincidental. Because once they can speak collectively, you find out that everybody shares the same opinion as far as the direction that the country is going. But no one can bell the cat. No one can say, this is what we got to do. Look at France and understand what democracy really means.
All right. Let me.
I yield. I yield.
All right.
I
Yeah.
yield.
Thanks for
I yield.
yielding. Let
I
me
yield.
just, Doc. Another Jamaican asked this question. Would like me to ask you this question. Says, if the Jamaican people do not trust the political process, how can they trust the government to reform our constitution for the people and by the people?
Oy, oy.
Well, we're going to see that in the referendum. If they don't trust it, then they won't vote yes. And
Okay.
we will continue to be a constitutional monarchy.
All right.
Let me ask this real quick. When did the process for you begin, as far as the reforming the Constitution?
I'll hang up and continue to answer. Continue to listen.
When did it begin?
Yes. Yeah. When were you aware that they were going to reform the Constitution?
As I said to you, one of the things I know that we've always been in the process of constitutional reform, and we've been having conversations about the change. If you remember when Portia Simpson Miller came to office as Prime Minister, one of the things she spoke about, I remember I was there watching her on the stage, was that Jamaica is no longer going to be a constitutional monarchy. I think that was the first time as an adult I became very conscious about the fact that there was a political party that was making a commitment. There was a government, not a political, and a prime minister that was making a commitment. I remember standing in the crowd and listening to that and being moved by that commitment at the time. So for me, and that was that was some time ago. That was
Doc,
Yeah.
Doc, hold on 1 second. We have a couple calls here. Sorry to interrupt you, Herb, but caller, go ahead, please, quickly. We're running out of time.
Yeah, I just wanted the doctor to speak to where the committee is right now, because I'm getting having a problem understanding, how to really direct the question if because it seems like she was more here for a discussion and not really to answer questions about the
Well, let me ask you this question. Do you have a question for the doc then?
Well, I would want her to say specifically, where is the committee right now in the process of the constitutional reform, to state quite clearly where it is, at what stage is it at right now? What are they looking at?
Okay, I don't know if you were at the beginning of the program, if you were listening to the beginning of the program, but I think she mentioned that they're in a stage one phase now, what they were doing. But Doc, I don't want to steal your thunder. Can you go ahead and answer the caller? He's asking what stage are you operating under right now?
Well, we're in phase one of the process, and that phase one, as we said, is dealing with those deeply entrenched provisions, those that will require referendum. And we have looked already at the question of should Jamaica become a republic based on the recommendations that have been put forward from the 1994 review, and what if we have a president? Republics usually are headed by a president. What kind of president should it be? How should the president be elected? And I think those were the first set of questions we answered, and then we proceed now next week when we meet again to look at questions related to citizenship and the matter of the deeply held provision.
Okay.
And those would be the critical questions for the first phase.
All right.
And yes, I did see them already. And it is, you are asking me questions and I am answering them.
Okay, no problem. All right. Caller, go ahead. You have the doc on the line. You have a question for her?
Yes, I do. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
All right. So thank you for taking the call. Good day to your co-host Herb and Dr. Spence. I believe you have. Let me say something to Dr. Spence because I just heard you say something. Dr. Spence, keep this in mind that people who live in the diaspora are not Jamaican foreigners. They're Jamaicans. Even if they're United States citizens, they are Jamaican. Okay? They contribute a lot to the Jamaican economy. For example, most of the money that the government gets, the government of Jamaica, who actually represents the people there, it comes from the diaspora. So, and keep in mind also that when you have elections in Jamaica, there are people from in the diaspora, whether they're in Canada, England, the US, or any other place, they'll go to Jamaica either a few days or a day before the election, or even sometimes the morning of the election, and because they're registered to vote, they can still vote. So stop talking and treating Jamaicans up here like myself, like we are foreigners. We're not foreigners, even though some of us may be United States citizens. So I just want you to keep that in mind. The other thing is that I want to ask you about, because you said you came on to talk about the Constitution, and I don't know if you can answer this. I'm wondering here why large countries like Canada, or powerhouses like Canada and Australia, they have not made any moves to move from the Westminster system, when little small countries like Trinidad and Guyana, and I think Jamaica is considering it now. Why the smaller countries have moved away from the Westminster system to some type of republic system, and the large countries like Canada and Australia haven't. The other thing is that I'm not hearing is, I'm hearing Mr. Rattigan, for example, and I believe you, saying that you prefer the republic system, but I mean, I think there's an explanation that needs to be given why you so much prefer the Republican system, the Republic system, than the Westminster system. And I'm not saying which one I prefer, because I'm not trying to tip the scale here. And my last point, Dr. Spence, is you said earlier that the Constitution either should or must serve the needs of the people. But when you were asked a question by Mr. Rattigan as far as the unlawful use of the Constitution for law enforcement purposes, you said that you were on the fence. But later in your conversation, if you're saying that the Constitution should serve the needs of the people, then I think you're actually agreeing with Mr. Rattigan that the government is using this SOE stuff here unconstitutionally. If you just listen to what you see, you can go back and listen to this when this is done. You're actually agreeing with him, but you're just not saying, for example, well, I'm agreeing or I'm disagreeing. You're just saying that you're on the fence. You are actually agreeing with Mr. Rattigan based on what you've said, because you know, and he explained to you that the Constitution or the SOE should only be used for war, insurrection, and national disaster. But I think, and with all due respect to you, ma'am, I think you're not being forthright with us today, because I think that because you are a part of the committee, you think that maybe committing to one way, especially if you say, well, you know, I think that you're actually using the SOE right. Your position on that committee may be.
All right. All right.
Thank you.
Caller, thank you so much.
Next of Mr. Rattigan seeking to answer some questions. I wasn't invited to.
Go ahead, Doc.
I'm not necessarily. Mr. Rattigan, tell the people that I'm not here to quarrel with them, please.
No, and actually the program is called Reason with Rattigan. It's not called Fight with Rattigan or Insult Rattigan. No, but
just to say that it's not a change to a Westminster system. It's a change from constitutional monarchy to a republican system. What does that mean? In a constitutional monarchy, in the case of Britain is a constitutional monarchy, and Britain doesn't have a problem with being a constitutional monarchy.
Right.
Neither does Canada, because Canadians and Britain have a relationship with the British monarchy based on history, based on race, and all of these
Okay.
Hello?
Hold on one second, Doc. Carla, go ahead. We don't have much time, so if you have a statement or you have a question for Dr. Spence.
Yes, sir. My question is pertaining to Jamaica land we love. We have a thing, body of people call themselves the Jamaica Bar Association. There are a body of people say they call themselves Jamaican human rights. With all of these with all of these wrongdoing of these present government and its cronies, is there anybody credible in those places that can show this gentleman or his cronies that look here, you're breaking the law here, you're breaking the law there, and you need to stop?
Okay, Carla, where you calling from, by the way?
I'm calling from Jamaica.
Okay. Doc, you care to answer that, or you wanna?
That wasn't a question, though. That was a statement.
David, I think that's your name. You have a question for the?
Yeah.
There's nothing there for me to respond to. The
I
gentleman
don't
is
hear you.
making a position.
No, Dr. Spence is saying there's nothing there that you've said for her to respond to. If you have a question, go ahead and ask it.
Can these
But
people?
remember what I was supposed to be talking about.
Right, the Constitution. Yeah, you have a question about the
Right.
Constitution?
Right. If the Constitution is broken, it is a criminal offense. Is it?
If it's violated, you mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead, Carla, but ask the question. Ask the question of the doctor.
Right. It is a criminal offense. So why these people in government kept breaking the Constitution, and if somebody go and pick up and go but somebody them lock them up?
Right. I think the doctor is gonna shy away from that question and refer it to law enforcement.
I'm not going to shy away from that question. I'm just not in a position to answer that. It's
Okay.
not my question to answer. That's not the premise upon which I was
Okay.
engaged in this conversation.
All right. You hear that, Carla?
Answer that
I'm not hearing the young.
No, she cannot. She says no. She says that the doc. Right. She says that that's not the premise of her being here. That it's about the Constitution, and you're asking a question that it has to do with the Constitution, but not within her purview. That's not what she's looking at.
All right then. Pertaining to the Constitution reform,
Mm-hmm.
all of those people that the Prime Minister is selecting to put on that panel,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I think those people should not be from his government. There are more credible lawyers there in Jamaica here that could go on that panel.
No. Let me stop.
I wouldn't like to see members of either the JLP or the PMP sitting on that panel, but changing the Constitution to benefit them.
Right. No, let me just quickly, and I know we're pressed for time, so we're gonna have to end the conversation. But I don't think that's a question that the doctor is gonna entertain, because she didn't have any, and I'm assuming she didn't have any input or any influence into who the Prime Minister was going to choose to be on the committee. So she's not. I don't think that's that. Go ahead.
The Constitution has members from both sides, not just the Prime Minister.
Okay. Well, all right, caller. Thanks for the call. Call back next week. All right.
The committee.
Okay.
All right. No, Herb. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. Okay. The reason I asked you, Dr. Spence, about when were you first aware that anybody wanted to make a constitutional change, you're correct. It was a while back, maybe 15 years or so, with Portia Simpson, Prime Minister Simpson. Now, it appears to me and other members within the diaspora that the only time that the government that's engineering this program at this point decided that they wanted to do it, and they're doing it as a more populist move, was based on the popularity of the Barbadian model and the Barbadian Prime Minister. At any point in time, it would seem, and this is why we don't have an outline on a web page so that the population can be introduced to the process and to follow along on the process.
You know, it's not difficult to do that though. This is the document that I got to read up. This is the amount of work that has already been done on constitutional reform, almost continuously from 1977. If you remember, it was under Bruce Golding's government that the Bill of Rights was introduced into the Constitution. What I said before was that both political parties in government, I think, have done significant work on the Constitution and the matter of constitutional reform. So I agree with you that there needed to be a website, and because people need to know what is happening. But I think there's enough information, and from my paper book here and others, there's enough information out there that could easily populate our website so that Jamaicans know. And I think there are people who know, but you are right. It needs to be in a space that is accessible so that Jamaicans can speak from a point of knowing.
And then I think at that point, you would get the type of questions that you came on board for, you know, because we're still having a starter system that nobody understands the start, nobody understands the basics, nobody sees the foundation. So if you can't see it and you can hear enough of it, if you go on YouTube, you don't see enough of it. So the bottom line is publicity. They really and truly need that. And then we'll be able to follow along much easier.
I agree with you.
Oh, hold on 1 second. We have a call coming. Caller, go ahead. Not much time. You have a question for the doctor?
Yes, Rattigan, this is Devon Taylor. I just got off a plane, so I'm not sure. I'm in the airport.
Yes.
I miss most of the call, but I want to question. Is there a portal that is already in place where the public can chime in?
We're having some. You're moving around.
I'm stationary now. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, my brother. Go ahead.
Yeah. One question is there a portal that is already constructed where the public can chime in on some, components of the existing constitution that we think that needs to be strengthened and we want our voice to be heard? That's one. Two, Dr. Spencer spoke about, several administration making, amendments to the Constitution over time, which is true. What, however, I do see is that there are colonial hangovers that are still in place within the Constitution that is supported by, some other form of legislation. Such as the
Devon,
vested.
it's hard to hear. It's hard to hear because you're scratching. I don't know if you. Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
No, I was talking about the portal availability for the public to chime in. Two is that despite several amendments to the Constitution, there are areas of the Constitution that needs to be strengthened. So I'm trying to make sure that ask the question whether or not there will be portals for live participation by Jamaicans both in the diaspora or in Jamaica. And I am particularly concerned because there are some colonial hangover in the Constitution. And I talk about Beach Control Act of 1956. I also talk about the Property Vesting Act, I think, that are in there that, those are issues that should have dealt with in terms of internal reparation. And I would just like the doctor to comment on what are the mechanisms that the government is putting in place so that, Pan-Africanists who wants to see certain internal reparative issue be structurally dealt with to reflect a constitution that is now being developed by the descendant of enslaved Africa to truly reflect our liberative society that have come of age. All right, I need to understand that, and I need to understand also, provisions that are going to be in place for a constitution that to reflect the environmentalism era that we're living in regarding climate mitigation, the protection of biodiversity on the planet. And I am worried because I don't see, scholars that are on the constitutional committee that are steep in environmentalism. And I'll listen for any comments.
Okay,
that
that's a mouthful, and we only have a few minutes left. So, Doc, the floor is yours.
Well, he said there are some vestiges. We have the Constitution. Remember, the Constitution is an act of the British Parliament. So it is a colonial document, and what we're talking about is creating a document that is Jamaican. So yes, that is there. That's what this work is about currently.
Hold on one second, Doc.
Yeah.
Devon, I'm going to hang up because we get the background, so you can just listen to the Doc's answer.
Yeah.
All right. Continue, Doc.
There is a representative from the Reparations Committee on the current committee, on the current Constitutional Reform Committee.
Mm-hmm.
I think that says a lot in respect of the matter of the issues around reparation that the gentleman spoke about just now.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the, as a matter of fact, in putting together the list of people who I think we are asking to invite to make their presentations to the Constitution, one of the groups that we have is the people from, is the Beach Birthright group. I don't remember their full name, and I don't have that picture.
Jabem.
Yes, so
Mm-hmm.
I have, well, in terms of me putting together the list of people who we will send invitations to
Okay.
make representation at the appropriate time, they are very much there as well. And other members of the committee, I think including the minister, has talked about the need to rectify that particular injustice as it relates to access to beaches.
Okay.
So, yeah, I have...
That gentleman is the CEO of Jabem, by the way.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so I would love to get in touch with him.
I will provide you with his
Dr.
details.
Is it Dr. Clough?
No. What's Devon? Is it Devon Clark, I believe is his name.
Is this the same organization with Dr. Goff?
Devon Taylor.
Devon Taylor, sorry. Devon Taylor.
Okay, well, I am talking about the one with Dr. Goff. I know that one, but I don't know if he's affiliated to the same organization.
Probably, but I'll get you his details because he needs to be at the table too when you start doing all of this presentation thing. But Devon, listen, I don't think the doctor is going to get, we have enough time for her to answer all your questions. But I want to ask her one quick question before we end the program. And the question is this. Because the Jamaican Constitution is a colonial construct, it's buttressed by colonialism. I mean, it oozes colonialism. And what we're doing now is we've been tinkering around the edges for decades, but we've never gotten to really address the matter the way we should. That simple question, why don't we just get rid of this constitution completely and start one that's indigenous to Jamaica?
I think that's what we're doing now. We're doing it chapter by chapter though.
No, but why don't we just say, look, what we're going to do is repeal this entire constitution and we're going to start our own.
So there will be a process where, let me tell you what it's going to be. It's called the Jamaicanization of the instrument, and that this constitution will be repealed and the new constitution, that act will be tabled in Parliament.
Okay, so we're getting rid of this one that we have that we've been living with since 1962. We're getting rid of that, right?
Right.
Okay, all right. Herb, do you have any final words for Dr. Spence?
No, Dr. Spence, it's like this. You give us a lesson plan, and once we see the lesson plan online, then we can answer and ask any questions amongst our brethren here in the diaspora, whether it's Canada.
There's one thing that if you and I are in agreement on one thing, it's the fact that presence needs to be online.
Yes,
okay.
Yes. Because without that, you're going to run into this problem over and over, where people start straying off the beat path.
Thank you. I agree with you 100%.
Well, look, we've come to, time flies when you're having fun. Doc, look, I sincerely appreciate your presence here today. We have learned a hell of a lot, and there's still more to be learned. So I expect that, and I hope that you will take us up on our offer to return to this program, because this is not, as you've realized by the callers and by some of the questions via text messages. This is a program that appeals to people not only in the diaspora but also in Jamaica, and it's an outlet for them. And so to have you here to answer the tough questions and also to explain the tough positions, it's a blessing. We look forward to having you soon. Take care and be well.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
All right.
Take care.
All right.
Be good. Be well.
Same to you.
So we're at the next segment now, or
Yeah. We're just gonna go through the commercial break. Is Dr. Hold on a second. No, Pastor Bobby.
Yes, sir. I'm here.
We can't see you, sir. Oh, there you are. Hold on. Yeah.
I'm a little bit visible. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. Look, ladies and gentlemen, family, we have a renowned person in our midst here today. A man that really, he needs no introduction from me because he's in my community. I mean, the introduction should be from me to you, but between us, there is no introduction because he's in my community doing a tremendous job, trying to take care of the children, getting them in positions where they can become bastion of the society, not bastards, bastion of the society, where he can get them in a situation where they can also influence other children, other young people in the community, and live a respectable, decent, ambitious life, and not be influenced by the criminal factions. We have here today Dr. I see keep saying that you might as well be a doctor, but well, you're a doctor to those young children in the neighborhood, you know. Pastor Robert McIntosh, popularly known as Pastor Bobby. Everybody know Pastor Bobby. Well, if you don't know Pastor Bobby, you're going to know about him today because this man is a remarkable man. He's doing yeoman's work in my little community of Waterhouse. By the way, Pastor, you see that place right there? You're supposed to know that place there. Now, that is 41 Penwood Crescent here, sir. Right at the corner of Varma Road, across from Varma Road. Oh, look, you can see it? See there? See there? There's a bar there, Miss Flower Bar. Miss Flower Bar, yeah, that's Penwood Crescent, right at the corner, Penwood Crescent, Penwood Road, across from Varma Road. Yeah, that's my place. My place, that. So thank you for the work that you've been doing there. Let me start by having you tell us about yourself, but also before you do that, introduce this lovely young lady next to you, sir.
This beautiful lady next to me. This is my wife. This is Marsha.
Marsha, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, I've heard good things about you and the school. So I'm really, really excited to have both of you on this afternoon. So Pastor Bobby, talk to the people in a few words or so. Introduce yourself to them. Tell them who is Pastor Bobby and tell them where you started and how you end up in Waterhouse, because it's a remarkable story. People need to hear it.
It's also a long story.
Well, if we can compress it, because we don't have a lot of time. We have time, but we don't have a lot of time.
Yes. So as best as I can, we are Maranatha Ministries. Originally a campus outreach ministry. So the legal name of our church is Maranatha Christian Church and Campus Ministries International. So for many years, we worked the campuses, all the campuses, as many as we could. And we did discipleship on the various campuses, UWE, UTech, MICO, wherever we could do outreaches, and in the high schools. So the church, as we grew, the church was predominantly young people, students, and that's how we grew for many years. Then I moved to the Pegasus Hotel, and we started to build the church, still doing campuses, but building the church by just being stationary at the Pegasus Hotel. And we were there at the Pegasus for over 10 years. And so our church grew to a predominantly middle class church. And I'm cutting the story as short as I can. At one point, I believe the Holy Spirit spoke to me and said, this is not where I want you to be. One of our theme, as we did the campuses, is if we could reach the top 5%, which is the cream of the crop of our nation from off the campuses, if we could reach the top 5% of the most educated in our nation, then we would be training leaders, lawyers, doctors, prime ministers, whatever, for nation building. Always we had the nation in our hearts. And so I believe the Lord led us to move from the hotel. And that's where our journey began, going into the inner city. Very strange, but very true. We were praying, fasting even, asking God for some directions where we should be going. And a pastor in the city just turned up and said, Pastor Bobby, I'd like to take you somewhere and show you a place. He did not know that we were praying about moving from the hotel. He knew nothing. And he drove us straight into Waterhouse and took us to this property. Then it was a huge metal work factory. And he took me there. I looked at it. It was just a jungle, if I could describe the place. It was just a jungle. And I looked at it and I said, God, we've been asking you to tell us where to go. And here's this pastor just taking me here. He didn't know anything. So the long and short of that is that we said to him, we'll take you. We got the evaluators in. They went through and through. It's about 3 acres with a huge warehouse. And the evaluator said the value of this property, if we were to take this from Waterhouse and put it anywhere else in Kingston, would be about 60 to 60 odd million Jamaican dollars.
Back then.
Mm-hmm. So we went into negotiation with the owner of the place, and we got the property for $6 million.
Wow. That's steal.
We had no money. And I said to him, can you work with us? He said, sure, just take the place, take it for 1 year, rent free, do your renovations, take it for 1 year. And after 1 year, pay me $1 million. And then we work it out. Well, can I say to you, we went in, and by the 1 year, we raised the $6 million and paid off for the property.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
So we are, from the very inception of just listening to God, moving from the hotel, we're at a property, bought, another penny owed on, and we're there 25 years now.
Congratulations.
Mr. Wilfred, you are a son of the soil, so you know more about Waterhouse than I do, or would.
Mm-hmm.
When we got there, or sometime after we got there, we discovered that this place was indeed a jungle, center for a lot of criminal activities. all the negatives. I don't want to go into much of that. But nonetheless, that's where we ended up. That's where God sent us. In taking our members from the Pegasus Hotel to Waterhouse, by the way, I had never been to Waterhouse in my entire life prior to that. And in taking about 3 cars filled with young people to take them to show them this property, there was the body of a man in the middle of the road that we had to negotiate the body and take the sidewalk in order to get to where we were going. That was the introduction that we had in going to Waterhouse. We lost maybe more than half, maybe about 3/4 of the church, because then no one wanted to come to Waterhouse. At least remember, I had young people, so their parents insisted that this would not be. And we are there 25 years. Our very first outreach was to start a school because we're very strong on education. And so we started, and here's the lady beside me, with other members of the church who initiated the launching of what is now Maranatha Basic School. We got off the ground. Within a year, maybe, my wife quit her job and went full-time to build and manage this school, because it was just tugging at our hearts. So Wilfred, I'm going to turn over to her, but before she gets there, I want you to know that we started the basic school by taking children off the road back then, 25 years ago. Forgive me for the expression that I'm going to use, but the children were running on the road like lost little ones. I can think of more negative description, which I won't. So we took them out. We took them out of the gully. And we bathed some of them, we clothed them, and we fed them. And that's all we did. And that's how the school got started, by just taking children out the street. So we had the children of all those who could not go to school, or the children of the parents of all those who did not send their children to school. We took them off the streets and we started there. 25 years on, Maranatha Basic School is, what would I call that now? One of the model schools of all of Kingston and St. Andrew.
Well, let me say this before I bring in Miss Marsha. May the Almighty continue to bless you and your wife and your lovely staff, and may your warehouse never be empty, sir. Miss Marsha, welcome to Reason with Rattigan.
Thank you. So I quit my job because, each time I would go to church, I would slip over to the school just to see what they were doing. I'm a trained teacher by profession. And it broke my heart when I went into the classrooms. The charts were on the walls, and they weren't looking good, improper spelling, and I thought, oh my God.
The teachers who we hired from Waterhouse.
Yes, and they weren't trained. They were only going to monthly workshops, and I just said to my husband, I have to go. I have to. Too many teachers are in this church for us to be running something like this. And so I did that. I listened, I prayed about it, and I went. Well, can I tell you, the very first week I said, no, I didn't. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I can't stay here. Because there was nothing I saw nothing that could appeal to me to stay. But
we're talking about children who don't scarcely grow up in a house or a home.
It was a culture shock, and I felt ashamed. I cried for 1 week. because here we were, 15 minutes, we lived in Havendale, 15 minutes on a good day from where we live, and we'd never seen that place, never knew that there were some people in Jamaica lived the way they lived, and I wept. I had to repent. I spent a whole week thinking, oh my God, how could this happen? So I threw myself into what I believe God had called us to, and we set about working. I worked with the teachers that were there. I went to the monthly workshops, of course, because prior to then, I was not trained in early childhood education. I did special ed. So I had to go and I had to learn how to equip myself to deal with these children. And I insisted that, whoever came to work with us had to be trained as well. So it was more on-the-job training for us. But can I tell you, right after I came, the then Prime Minister, P.J. Patterson, passed a law that said there would be at least one trained teacher to a basic school. And I literally, we drove, but in my own saying, when I'm talking about this, as I ran from the school to the ministry to say, hire me, I'm trained. And they said, you can't be, we have other teachers waiting in the wings, and your school is not not a recognized basic school. You are just coming. We have more people on the waiting list. And I said, well, I wouldn't be coming to ask to be hired to go to another basic school. I'm going to the school that we started. If you can't hire me to go to that school, I'm trained and I need the trained teacher's salary. So I was putting in everything that I had. I know how to argue. And I said, hire me, I'm trained. And this is what the Prime Minister said. And so I was hired. I was hired on spot. And so I was, shortly after that, they had a trained teachers project that it was now law, one trained teacher to a basic school. And I was among the first set of trained teachers that started on that project. I was trained by the government. I was seconded to Jules Avenue Primary and Infant Department. So, so you would say this is the way it was done. Jules Avenue hired me, and I was seconded to Maranatha Basic School, and I stayed there until retirement.
Wow.
Joseph came and asked us who owned the land, and they built a new school costing over $40 million.
$45 million to be exact.
Yes, and so we put in programs, we did everything, and I worked with the teachers, and we got more getting trained, going to college. Of course, they didn't stay because only one trained teacher was allowed in any basic school. So these other teachers who were trained went to other infant school or primary schools. And so we always had to be training new teachers. Today, there is a trained teacher. As soon as I retired, the space was made for her. And so she's now, Mrs. Arlene Bernard, she is now leading the team. I give oversight, but I'm telling you, these children at the basic school have progressed. During COVID, we still had school online. Our teachers were able to set up on their phones their whatever was needed, their computer savvy, so they had no problem. In fact, they were helping other teachers in the area. The children had school during COVID. The parents came to the school for their homework and everything. The teachers went to their house to help, and so they didn't fall behind. I'm telling you, they didn't even. Today, we benefited from the pandemic. We now have 135 children enrolled they're saying to us, look, you need more teachers. This place cannot hold so many children. But we continue, we do extracurricular activities. Our children swim. Some of those 4 to 6 year olds are reading at grade 4 level. Grade 4 level in a primary school. So there's no small matter what is it. It's not a small thing what we've accomplished. Some of our children are from the inception 1998 to now. Some of the youngsters who came from the beginning are at universities.
Let's trip in here a little bit. 25 years ago, when we did our little research, very few, and Mr. Rattigan, you can verify as we go along, but very few, if any, young people left school and went to universities.
I can verify that.
Yes.
Shortly after, we were turning out students who were now going to the University of the West Indies and UTech and teachers' colleges. We have sent out more graduates from Waterhouse going in with scholarships too, to some of the top high schools. Our children from the basic school are sought after by most of the top primary schools around the area. So we have made a tremendous inroad in impacting the lives of the young people.
There is one primary school now. Whenever they have children who need extra help or need a foundation, they send them back. They send them to us. Not necessarily they're not coming from our school, but we've worked with principals who have said, can I send my 7-year-old for you to help them for 1 year so that they can fit back into the primary school. And we've done that, and they have caught up and have done well.
Let me just say this, that, you know, as I listen to both of you describe Waterhouse and the people in Waterhouse, particularly the children, you don't know this, but and when I say you, I'm talking about the audience. Nobody knows this, but I'll confess, I got emotional because I can identify with the situation. I know what you're talking about. Those are my people. That's my neighborhood, and I went through some of the same things that you just discussed, and I got emotional, I must admit. Like I said before, may God continue to bless you, because you people, the faith, the extraordinary faith and the dedication and the perseverance that you have. I mean, you are my national heroes. You're two of my national heroes because of the things that you've done. Because I can see.
You will find a lot more like us. There
Right.
are some more. There are some more dedicated.
Well, they're national heroes too. Those are the people who
Yes,
should be,
and the community has welcomed us with open arms. We have no problem going in and out. Then
Right.
we have our young people from the church. They are being impacted as well, very positively. If they're in trouble, if they get into trouble, we go with them. We go as far as it's humanly possible for us to hold their hands, walk with them, take them to where they need to go. We're not indulging in any wrongdoing. We follow we show them what the law says about some of the misdemeanors, and we go the extra mile. Children have been, whereas children would be sent to jail or reformatory school or whatever you call it now, we say send them to us.
The courts actually
Send them to
young
Maranatha
people, sentence them to us for us to
for
work
us
with
to
them.
work with
Amen.
them, and they do community service. They do community service. They complete their community service. They get a good report, and they're gone back into this happens in Waterhouse. We don't brag about these things. We don't go on TV, but when we get a chance to speak like this on this forum, I'm telling you, good things are happening there.
Well-
We can't serve everybody, all of Jamaica. But this little sphere of influence that the Lord has given us, that's where we work from. And so we're changing Waterhouse, and we want to change Maranatha spiritually, physically, in every area. But when we came to Waterhouse, we believed that it was not just necessary to stop at the people's spiritual development alone. It's all the areas. We are looking at the total person. So we start with education. If we can educate the children, we'll have a better society. We're looking at going into the community to do families now.
Well,
And
well,
see
you
how
know,
we can help to break the back of the crime
let me
and
stop you right there,
balance
Miss
that.
Marsha. Let me stop you right there and just one quick comment, and then I have to bring in somebody who's eminently qualified to
Yes.
talk about children and the way they should be treated vis-a-vis the law. You were saying that we were doing some small things, but I'm reminded that there are no small acts. They're only small actors. Because you can take whatever you consider to be small and make something out of it. And that's exactly what you two have done. Now, let me stop right there and bring in Herb Nelson Jr. because he recently did a program which I appeared on along with some experts from around the world. And it was about children's rights. And he
Yes.
knows about Waterhouse. He's done some work with the CDC folks there as well. So without further ado, Mr. Nelson, please
Yeah.
meet Pastor Bobby and his lovely wife, Marsha. And do you have a question? Do you have a comment? Join the conversation, please.
Eagerly, Pastor, and eagerly, Marsha, I'm glad to meet both of you. And believe me, I'm taken back by your accomplishments. I really and truly am. I saw the need for basic schools back in the probably late 80s. And then sometime in the 90s, I made contributions of some of the first computers to basic school, which was in Swallowfield,
Yes.
where I grew up, right across from the National Stadium, right? I say I grew up there, but I also grew up Barbican, Grantspan area also. But because I couldn't behave at home, I got shipped down to Swallowfield to grow up, with my grandmother. And they would ship me back when I looked like I was behaving. So I understand the frustration of those young kids pretty well.
Yes.
One of the things that I learned was that if you have people who take an interest in the community and become community organizers, whether it's sports, whether it is some training program where the kids are learning, because you show the kids, I call it love, right? The kids will have an appreciation for that grooming that you give them. And they will respond to it
Yes.
in a positive manner. And they'll be thankful and they will try to excel to show their appreciation. Now, I hear people refer to it as a diamond in the rough and all kinds of, eloquent terms. But in reality, it pains me to see the corruption and to see the things that go on
Yes.
when money is supposed to, what they call, trickle down through the CDC into the community. And it doesn't trickle down, right? You have to go examine what happened up top. Where is the bottleneck? Why isn't there any money coming down to us for programs to help us, right? But the bottom line is you have to have the patience a drove, as my mom used to say. She was a school teacher as well. And she really and truly worked with all of us. And like Dr. Spence, who was on earlier, I come from a family of 11. And I am the number 3. And all of us, I can knock on wood, my oldest brother passed, but all of us have completed college and graduated because of her. So not only can the mothers follow your example, but mothers gonna have to do a lot more. To me, the mothers are the champions of the household. They are the supreme managers of the household. And even when we organize the kids in sports here and in Portmore, where we have Portmore as a soccer academy there. We have like 140 something kids with the last count. We have a soccer mom program because there's somebody needed to feed the kids.
Yes.
If the kids are not fed, they can't learn, right? And I think you know that better than I do, right? And once they've eaten something, then and once you demonstrate to them what they have to do, you give them that exercise book, and you show them how to make circles or different shapes and stuff like that. Now they're doing it because of the system they have here. You have these shapes and stuff that exist in pre-kindergarten. Now I'm asking you, is the government funding any pre-kindergarten programs in Jamaica or in your community? Has the government been doing any of that?
The government, when I was in the school system, they used to provide. There's one lady, and she partnered with a company. I don't remember her name right now, but she used to garner funds from different entities, and she would provide blocks and manipulatives. I forgot the name of the project, but they used to, to me, that lady was extremely consistent. I don't know if she's doing it now. I haven't heard anything more about it. I've retired for a while now. So, but that used to come on a consistent basis, and it went to schools in our zone, in the Zone 7 area where we are, and there are about 27 schools or more. Every school would get the government's grant for instructional material is minimal, extremely minimal. It can only, we only used to buy about 3 sheets or 4 sheets of cartridge paper, some markers and chalk, if anything is left over, and duster. No basic school children don't even need chalk and duster. But our friends, most of the instructional materials and the manipulatives that we have in our schools is our friends and families that donated them.
Yes.
When we travel in wherever we went, both my husband and I, we were coming back with tons of things, boxes of toys that my nieces and nephews threw out. And I would grab them up and come home, wash them, clean them up. Nobody would know that they're hand-me-downs. And that's what provides the teaching aid for our school.
And other schools.
And other schools. We used to be able to, we had enough to give away, to give to our neighbors.
So can I just say that we were able to make what we do successful because, again, my wife and I traveled extensively and we raised support. So the majority of the support for the school that we have comes from donors.
Yeah.
Not government.
But that is not to say that the government doesn't help. The government helps where they can. They can do more, and they should do more. Because when you travel and see those schools, those public schools, well, I don't have to tell you. If you live abroad, you know. When I visit my sister's school in Florida, I am like, I just walk around with my mouth opened, flabbergasted, in awe. I mean, everything is in these classrooms.
Yep.
But we make excuses. We're third, we're poor, we're this, we're that. but I don't know if our priorities are in the right place.
Well, you know, the other thing is this. If there is a curriculum that starts at the basic school level and takes the kids all the way up to the tertiary level,
There
right?
is.
The idea that a school in Denham Town or any other of those other areas that is stuck with maybe a 44% graduation rate, right? That's unacceptable because it means that the kids are being sentenced to a life probably where the only success they're going to have is with the gangs, right?
Or if someone, if some organization does not come alongside them and offer support, show
Right.
them another way, then that's
Right.
where they'll end up, sad to say.
Well, this is the alternative because today what we did try to do was introduce a coding training program, which was organized by one of our members, Stafford Grant. He's the head of the Ex-Soldiers Association here in the Northeast. And he has that and graphic arts and some other programs that he puts on. But when we tried to introduce it into Waterhouse, there was no broadband. And then we tried to arrange for broadband. And we found out even that was very difficult. Now, do you have broadband where you are?
We have total internet access. I don't know about broadband.
Well, that would be it then.
We
Yes,
have
yes.
total internet access.
Access.
Yes.
Because I've been trying to get Chris at CDC and another young man there to organize the kids so that we can get them into, I mean, from 5 to 15, they can come in and do a lot of the coding, because coding with the right different programs.
But we did that for, we also partner with Heart.
Okay.
And not JC, what's this other one that is give us the computer lab? Universal Service Fund has equipped one of our classrooms. So we have a computer lab, and Heart worked with us just before COVID, about 4 cohorts of young people. So about 200 youngsters graduated from the program in IT. And so some of them were even used during COVID to do coding and those things,
right,
that were needed at the time. So we do have the facility for that to happen right where we are. We have a computer lab, and it is financed. It was financed by Universal Service Fund.
Right.
If they're in the phone book and they're on the web, so you can probably read. I can probably give you some information regarding who they are. You could probably
that'd be great.
through them.
Because I don't understand why we could not have expanded your accesses and your programs to the 2 community centers that exist in Waterhouse.
Yes.
I don't know if anybody ever asked you to help them with it, but you know, the centers are there, and we were told there are kids who are in need and who wanted to sign up for the various programs, but without the internet.
I'm not sure where these 2 centers that you're referring to are.
He's talking about
This one over at Bagger Park.
right. That
Where?
center, Marie Atkins.
Marie Atkins.
Yeah,
Okay.
that center, I don't know, that they've always had issue with. I don't know what their issue is.
A lot of the projects that have started there have just not come off the ground. So where we are the center that is used by Heart and other entities that want to do whatever.
But no, there's a center in Seaview, I think.
Seaview is the other
Yes,
one that I would
that
think
they
of.
work out of. Right.
And I think that's more active.
Yes.
Yeah, I just got a message from a fellow Waterhouseian, if I can coin a phrase, and he says a program with Heart was completed recently, and another one is to start. But he didn't. Yeah,
Yes.
That is correct. We're the ones that run that.
Okay.
There's program for customer service, and there's one to start next week. About next week, Tuesday, I think, or Wednesday, we're going on the street corner to recruit more students.
To start one of these programs, we have to have a minimum of 20 from the community. So we do our own recruitment. We walk the roads. We set up street side benches just to get them off the streets. We do whatever it takes to help young people that they might have a future.
You know,
can I just quickly just throw this in there?
Sure.
A lot of our accomplishment has to do with who we are. And so because I am the pastor, I'm the pastor for literally for Waterhouse. I'm the pastor for the police. I'm the pastor for all the criminals.
Amen. Amen.
We have to bury most of them. We counsel them. So I am the marriage officer. When we went in 25 years ago, let me just say, 100% of the staff that we have in our basic school are hired from Waterhouse. So we don't go out to bring in others. We try to raise them up from there and provide employment. The point that I want to make is that we're in developing the people, in developing the community. Oh, this is my point. I was missing my thoughts. As a marriage officer, since we've been working in Waterhouse, when we got there, part of our research, there were little or no marriages. No family life. No. The men were in prison, on the streets, whatever it is. There was
nobody was getting married.
And I have done over 300 marriages in Waterhouse since I've been there.
Wow.
Because we are strong and family. And the children we have, they get us into their homes. They open up their homes to us because we have all their children. And so we get into the hearts and lives of people. A man has 5, 6, 10 children with different women. I was sitting down and say, marry the woman you're with. And I counsel them, and we end up doing a lot of marriages because family matters. Wilfred, we want to change the community, and so we have the children, but we have the adults. We have everyone.
You know, because we're time is at a premium right now.
Okay.
But let me just ask, the way we advertised the program today was with this question for your segment: are the churches doing enough to protect vulnerable children? Now, based on what I'm hearing, not just today, but for several years about what you and Miss Marsha doing down in Waterhouse, I know this to be true, that you are doing more than enough to protect vulnerable children, but not only vulnerable children, but vulnerable adults as well. As you just mentioned, start getting people married and giving a sense of community and family. So the question I have to ask you now is, you are doing more than enough, but are the churches, based on your opinion and what you see going on, are the churches doing enough to protect vulnerable people in Jamaica?
I would not be able to answer intimately what all the churches are doing, but the churches are active. Since we've just come out of COVID, we have just reconvened a gathering of pastors. We're trying to do a pastoral network bringing churches together. And so we have had two meetings of pastors coming together, and they're sharing what they're doing in their little area.
Yeah.
And so, yes, my brother, the church is alive. They are doing things. If I could put this out there, I wish that the government of Jamaica would partner more with churches, because they are the ones on the ground changing lives.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me interrupt you for a second.
No one cares.
Let me interrupt you for a second and ask you this. When you talk about government involvement, they have the National Prayer Breakfast, right? Are you invited to any of these? And if you and can you tell me, based on your knowledge, are these productive? These prayer breakfasts, are they productive? You don't have to answer. You know,
I don't want to speak against.
All right, fair enough. Fair enough. No, I understand. No, fair enough. Fair enough.
Politically correct.
No. I understand. No worries.
I'm not putting them down.
No. I understand.
But the churches have their politics, and I don't care for church politics. I join nobody's bandwagon. The National Prayer Breakfast is somewhere that I can be anytime and every time it's held, but I don't go, because for me it is not productive.
Okay.
I can do much better than trying to be on a platform with 1 million pastors. It's going nowhere for me. I am an underground person.
But you're speaking for yourself.
I'm speaking for myself. I do not. So I don't want to talk about what is accomplished with that National Prayer Breakfast.
All right, no problem. Herb.
You're muted, sir.
Mr. Nelson, you're muted.
No, I was saying the pastor is a field operator. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't spend his time up in the office all the time counting his money and looking at how many people showed up and how much money how many collections you can make for the day, and you can come up with a building plan to collect more. But let me say this to you. The model that I know worked in the past was a grant spending model. And I say that because the USAID, to stop a lot of the fighting amongst the youth, they built
Is that the one that Mrs. Blaine was part of too?
I believe so.
Yes,
And Reverend Mured has a huge building up there where there's a basketball court. They play soccer on Friday nights. I used to go by there, and I grew up with them in actuality. We grew up together in Barbican.
I am familiar with them, very familiar, and we work with Betty Blaine.
Good. Now, have you had the opportunity to ask for USAID assistance in expanding and doing your programs and building buildings and that kind of stuff? Because that's pretty much the model that you see at Grant Spend. USAID came in there, gave them the community center, gave them the health center, most importantly, so that they could attend to the medical needs of the community.
No, we haven't.
No.
And Betty Blaine is familiar with that process too, because
USAID sponsored the Grant Spend project.
Right.
And they were behind that, and we're intimately involved, and I'm intimately related to some of the pastors in the Grant Spend community. I work with them, so I know what it's all about. I am part of them, but no, we have not directly benefited from USAID. The basic school that my wife referred to, the building that we have there, was sponsored by JSIF and the Canada Fund.
Right.
So the Canada Fund is there in writing that they sponsored that the payment for that the building of our basic
And the
school.
EU too, I think.
The EU, yeah, because there are different sources. You have the
Yes.
UK aid,
Together and the government of Jamaica.
right? Right. I mean, it's all relative, and organization is the key. And you guys are well organized at your core. And what I was saying to Chris at CDC was, look, you've got to look within your community, organize and request funding from the different sources, whether it's Canadian aid, UK aid, USAID. But you gotta, the money is there. There's a lot of money out there. But somebody has to administratively champion these requests and get.
Well, we need some movers and shakers like you, Mr. Nelson and Mr. Rattigan, that can get us in connected. Like I said, we have worked the ground. Our basic school, I think the internet, is it the internet or the telephone? Or both? No, the internet is paid for or sponsored by Digicel.
Not anymore. Flow.
Has, okay.
Yes,
so in other words, we do connect
yes.
with organizations, but USAID, no, we have not been able to.
Digicel and Marita sponsored our resource and reading room. So that same reading program is going on to now, and that's why we have good readers, because we have not stopped.
Hey, a praise report.
Just
this
first.
week, this week here, today is Saturday, so this week here, Monday, Tuesday of this week, for the very first time, the government, I think the government Ministry of Education has had a spelling bee contest for basic schools. Maranatha came first.
Wow, congrats.
The very first one.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean that. Yeah, you're a standout, and from what you're saying, you have that solid foundation, and you have your kids show growth, and they've gone all the way on to college, from what you're saying, and that means they're being successful. You know.
Mr. Nelson, let it be said that there are fallouts along the way. Because I'm the pastor, I know for a fact some of the youngsters who have come through our basic school have gone the way of crime also.
Yes.
So the community impacts these youngsters in a big way. We do what we can, but we lose some of them to crime.
But yeah, the word out there, it takes a village. That means everyone in that CDC or in a successful business or the police or the military, they have to have their input in the community, doing counseling and mentoring the young folks, right? It's got to be hands-on. It cannot be just a lot of talk and stuff.
Let me just say this, Herb, because we're really pushing up against time right now. Pastor and Miss Marsha, you're obviously successful in what you're doing. Like you said, you have negatives attached to the program, but the positives are just overwhelming. Now, how do you plan to market this? Do you plan to market this nationwide to say, look, you know what, we have a good thing going here, and for the sake of our nation, for the sake of our future, for the sake of our children, we need to get this out? And I know you say you're doing stuff with other pastors, but beyond that, and including the government, including PSOJ, civil society, the academic institutions, what's your plan to export your success to the rest of Jamaica?
So let me quickly say to you, we have another school in Westmoreland that is extremely successful also. But that school in Westmoreland goes right up to secondary, from infant to secondary. Or in fact, it is so successful in Westmoreland that the overseers, the principals of that school, we're asking them to come and oversee what we're doing in Waterhouse. They're members of our church, but we want them to be the overseers of what takes place, because we want what we do in Waterhouse to be even a better product. We have another church up in the mountains of St. Mary. We don't have a school there, but we work with a lot of young people.
So you're asking the question, what are we going to be doing? We want to be able to take what we have and say, this is what we have. We can tell you what our successes are. You can use what we get, have a template, and say to whoever wants us to come and show them or help them, or
Well,
you know,
I tell you,
we when we go to when they used to have regular workshops, we were asked to I was used to present, you know, what we're doing. We talk about, if it were a lesson plan writing, I would be one of the persons that they would ask to, you know, help with that. And so there are many things that we believe that we're able to help others to do, and we're ready. We're now ready to go into to wherever we're needed. We can also say we're waiting to get our program Family First off the ground, where we can say to the government, we have found a formula for reaching families.
So quickly, let me say Betty Blaine is developing
I'm so sorry that she's not here.
Yeah.
She's developing a program with us for us to create a template,
Yes.
to present to the government how families can change the community.
Outstanding.
And we're doing the research from our own resource.
Yes, so we're going into the homes with questionnaires, asking questions, sitting with parents, and asking them, what are your plans? Helping them to make plans for their own children. Talk with them and show them the way forward, or help them, or have them articulate what they want to see change for them. What are their plans, and how we can help to facilitate that?
You know, Statin is doing a census right now in Jamaica. And Statin should take a page out of your book, because what you're doing is far greater than what Statin is. And I know, because I have some links there. I know what they're doing. And what they're doing is nowhere near what you're doing. Nowhere at all.
We're looking at root causes. We're looking at some things, because the crime and the violence go deep. It has to be something that we're missing. And if we can go into the homes of these youngsters and talk to their parents, because some of these youngsters in the homes are mothers and fathers.
Look, I tell you what, Miss Marsha and Pastor Bobby, I'm going to have you guys come back again, because time flies, especially this segment. I mean, it just flew. And also, I'm getting calls from people who would like to have you on there. Very dear friends of mine, a talk show host, who would like to have you on sometime next week. I'll talk to you offline, and we'll make the arrangements for you to make the appearance on this program.
I'm not a talker.
Well, Pastor Bob, we can have him. But I really want to thank both of you for making the time to talk to us today and let us know what's going on with the successes. And may God continue to bless you. And like I said before, may your storeroom never be empty. Thank you again for coming on. We'll see you soon.
Pleasure meeting you, Mr. Nelson.
And my blessings to both of you, and for continuing in strength and in serving God the way you are, because this is fantastic.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. We'll be in touch. All right,
Bye-bye,
folks,
Mr.
that's it.
Rattigan. Bye.
All right, take care now. Be well.
Bye-bye.
All right. That's it, folks. We're wrapping up. And next week, I won't be here. We'll have, I think we're going to have a rebroadcast, but I'll keep you guys posted during the week. Herb, I'll touch base with you soon.
Okay.
Thanks again
All
for
right.
being here. All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye now.
All right.
Honesty, can you say honesty? Honesty, can you say honesty?